Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victoria and this is my channel where I talk about yarn and knitting and other crafts. So thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video I will be talking about Stashbusters 2022, what the challenge is, and then sharing my updates or like my, I don't know what, like details, how January and February went, and then I will be sharing with you my plans for March. And so Stashbusters 2022 is a challenge not necessarily about like reducing your stash, but about seeing the yarn that you have, loving the yarn that you love, getting rid of the yarn that you're never gonna use, and then also just being more content with your stash. For me, I have a ridiculously large stash. My stash, when I counted it last, was 700 and something skeins of yarn. So I think I had like 40 kilos of yarn. That was not including all of my yarn, that was like most of my yarn. So, and a lot of the yarn that I have is yarn that I love and that I do want to knit with, but just because it's in my stash, I don't really see it because some of my stash is under my bed and some of my stash is in like crates. I don't see it all the time, so I'm not like getting tempted to knit with that yarn. So I decided late last year that I was going to try in 2022 to knit with the yarn that I have and love the yarn that I have, because I have sock yarn, I have yarn for felting, I have sweater quantities, I have fingering weight yarn, I have super bulk yarn, I have all kinds of yarn in my stash in all kinds of colors. So really I have yarn to knit whatever I want. If I want to knit, there was something that just crashed into my window. Well, if I want to knit a sweater, I have the yarn to knit a sweater. So instead of going out and buying new yarn, I've been like really good about going into my stash and seeing what I actually have. So, and also a lot of these like stash busting challenges are like, you're not allowed to buy yarn. And the Norwegian version of this that I know is quite popular is that you have to finish 20 projects before you buy any skeins of yarn. I don't think like that is for all of us feasible. For me, 20 projects, that was no problem, because like I could knit a pair of mittens and I could knit like 2 or 3 pairs in a day, or dishcloths or oven mitts. So that was not really feasible for me. So in my like interpretation of the Stashbusters challenge is just to love your stash more and really be content with what you have and use what you love. So what I am doing is I don't have any limitations, and this is not going to work for everyone, but for me, I have no limitations. If I want to buy yarn, I can buy yarn, but I'm just trying to be aware that I have 700 skeins of beautiful yarn in my stash that really deserves to be loved. So what I'm doing at the start of every month, I take a basket. I'm going to show this basket to you right now. I take a basket and I go into my stash and I pull out some skeins. Now those skeins are typically from deep in my stash. Like yarn that I got, the yarn that I'm going to show you that I pulled out for January and February are like yarn that was like years old, like 5 years old or something. So I'm just pulling out that yarn. If it's like new yarn and it's in my stash, then well, I know that I have that yarn. I don't need to like pull it out and actually like look at it to make something with it. So yeah, I pull the yarn out of my stash, and it doesn't have to be all that I want to knit with that month, but it just has to be, I could go into my stash and I look at the yarn and I see what do I want to work with, because it's beautiful yarn. I just need to be like reminded to work with it. So and I'm also gonna do updates on like actually how much yarn I knit with, how much yarn I purchased, and like share with you like if things went to plan. So I have my computer here to help me remember. Yeah, so for January, my dog, I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back. So for January, I knit 2,925 grams out of my stash. That is 50 gram skein and 1 skein, like 25 gram skein of mohair. But because I don't have limitations on like buying yarn, I also bought 2,650 grams in January. Now this was like a planned disaster, or like I did plan to buy that yarn. That was not like an impulse buy. I am a knitwear designer, so I need certain yarn at certain times, and like mohair in sweater quantities I do not have in my stash, and I don't have fingering weight in sweater quantities in my stash. So for a couple of designs that I have planned, I needed to buy this yarn. And this is yarn that I know I love and that I will love for years and years to come. I'm just gonna show you most of the yarn that I got, like except for the mohair yarn, was Filcolana Arvetta. This yarn is never on sale, but this was on a pretty good sale. I think it's originally like $7 in Norway, and it was $2.50 off. So, and this is yarn that I needed for a design. And then I also got, I've been wanting to make the flax light sweater for so long in this color. Yeah, it's not showing up, but this is like a petrol color. So when it was on sale, and I know that it's for that specific project, I was like, I'm gonna buy it. So my goal is to knit with this yarn. I just dropped it on the floor. My goal is to knit with this yarn in 2022. This yarn is yarn that I have specific plans for that are gonna happen very, very soon. So in order to like keep track on what I'm doing, how much yarn I'm knitting, I am writing up like all the yarn that I purchased, and then as the month is going on, I have this like Ziploc bag where I'm keeping all of the yarn bands from each month. This is the bag for January, and as you can see, there's a lot of skeins in there. At the end of the year, I really want to like go through and check how many yards or how many meters did I knit this year. So I'm just keeping all of these, and I'm keeping them separate in like bags, because I also want to go back at the end of the year and see if there was like any trends. Did I really like working with fingering weight yarn in January, and then October comes and I'm all about bulky? I kind of want to see those trends. So yeah, the yarn that I pulled out into this basket for January was this this merino yarn. This yarn has been in my stash for a year, almost a year, not that long, and I know that on the camera it looks like it's different dye lots. The number are the same. I went back into my like bags of yarn bands and check the colors. The dye lot are the same, and you can't see it in real life, this difference that is showing up here on the camera. But I just need myself a super simple raglan sweater with this. I still need to weave in the ends and also like fold down the neck. But like, because this yarn is really good quality yarn, this is Sannes merino. That is a great yarn. But just because this was in like a bed roller under my bed with 80-90 other skeins of yarn, I just wasn't seeing it. So now I see it. Now I love this yarn. This is one of my colors. So yeah, now I almost have a sweater in that yarn. Instead of going out and buying new DK weight yarn to knit myself a sweater with, I think this was 12.5 50-gram skeins out of my stash. So that is really good. For February, I knit. I didn't calculate the weight of this, but I knit 46 skeins of 46 like 50-gram skeins. That is 2,300, I think, grams. And I have all of the like things in this. For January, I also have a gray yarn. I don't have the project here, but you can see it in my podcast. But for February, I pulled out two like yarn for two projects. The first one is this. Oh, and I forgot to say how much yarn I purchased in February. In February, I only purchased 300 grams. And that was 300 grams for an order. The yarn is already knit up, so that is great. But the yarn that I pulled out from deep in my stash for February was this. This is Drops Nepal. I got this yarn probably like 4 years ago to knit myself a sweater, but it was just like stoved in a bag in the back of my closet, so I didn't use it. And then at one point I had decided I was gonna make knit pumpkins, and then I pulled 3 or 4 skeins of this yarn out of that bag because I knew I had orange Drops Nepal. This is actually a more burnt orange. The picture or the phone is not really picking it up, but I knew I had that yarn, so I just pulled out 4 skeins at that time, and then there wasn't enough yarn to knit the project that I had in mind for this sweater. But this is a color that my mom really loves, so I knit her a zipper sweater by PetiteKnit, and I used up, I think this is 12 skeins of Drops Nepal, and I used up every last bit of the yarn that I have. I think I have like 20 grams left, but I still need to do the inside, like the thing that you're gonna secure the zipper with. So I will have used up every bit of this yarn from my stash, and whatever is not getting used up in knitting the insides of this will go into a scrappy blanket that I'm knitting for children in Nepal. So the Nepal yarn is getting used for children in Nepal. That's great. So that is project number 1 from February. And I obviously knit more than what I'm showing you here. The only projects I'm going to show you in this like Stashbusters kind of thing is the projects that I specifically pulled from deep in my stash to like see and knit with and love for that month. So, and then I have one more project for the Stashbusters 2022 February. I had this burgundy yarn in my stash that I don't know how long it's been in my stash. I'm gonna guess a year and a half, and I only had 10 50-gram skeins of this, so that was not enough for a sweater for me like I was originally wanting to do. So I pulled it out of my stash intending to do the Stephen West Boneyard shawl. But then, and it was in this basket, but literally like an hour before I started casting on for that, I got a message from someone on Facebook, can you please knit this bubble sweater for me? I will pay you, and I want it in burgundy in that yarn. So that was this exact yarn. So that was great. So I used 6 skeins of that yarn in this sweater. So that is 18 skeins from like really deep in my stash, just in these 2 projects for February. So that is great. I just need to weave the ends, and then this is gonna get sent to its new owner. So February was really successful. I actually decreased my stash with like 2,000 grams. That's 2 kilos. That's insane. So for March, I have filled my basket up. I'm just gonna show it to you again. Like this. There are a lot of scraps in this basket, I have these. So these are leftovers from, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I have been making a lot of heart mittens in the past years. So these are just scraps from those. Like this yellow is 4 scraps, this green is 3 scraps of the same color, not necessarily the same dye lot, and this is 4 scraps of this pink color. So scraps are stressing me out. So, but these will make perfectly fine mittens. So my goal is, my number one goal for March is to make 3 pairs of mittens using these skeins. And then I got on sale a while ago a lot of cotton yarn, like really heavy cotton yarn. My goal was to make a pillow case, like design a pattern for it, but like as I'm looking at it now, there isn't enough yarn to do that with. So I have 6 skeins of this color. This is all mandarin grande. This is like also really deep in my stash. And then I have 1 skein in this color of mandarin grande, 2 in this, 2 in a navy, and 7, I'm not gonna pull them out, 7 in that blue color. So I have pulled this out of my stash because this is really great quality yarn that I do want to use. It's just not gonna work for the project that I have. Right now I'm thinking I'm gonna do 1 out of 2 possible projects. The project number 1 that I'm thinking, and that I think will use up these 2, are PetiteKnit has a pattern for a tote bag, like a yarn, a project. I don't know how to explain it. I don't remember the name of the pattern. I'm gonna link it below. But she has like a project bag, a crocheted one, that is like great for having your yarn in while you're knitting. I think this is gonna become that. I have 13 skeins of this. This yarn is 50 grams, is 56 meters. So I think that will be enough for one of those like project bags, these 13 skeins. And then for the yarn that I only have 2 skeins of, or also for this yarn, if there isn't enough yarn to like make what I'm planning, I am planning to do the Daybreak Trivets by Christina Ann Studios. Or I'm pretty sure it's Christina Ann Studios pattern. I have made a lot of the Daybreak Trivets before, but then I've been using a yarn that I got from Turkey called Ice Yarn Jumbo Cotton or something. Jumbo tube. I'm not sure what the yarn is called. But in the pattern, there's also suggestions for using different combinations of just normal cotton yarn. So I'm thinking that I can do with this. So that is my goal for March, is knitting with the yarn that is in this basket. Now, I may not necessarily use up all of that yarn. Like, if I only use like half of those cotton skeins, that is fine. Knitting is supposed to be fun. But I just want to like start using those cotton skeins because they've been in my stash for so long. And it's really good yarn. I love the yarn. There's nothing wrong with the yarn. It's just like when the yarn didn't work for the project that I had in mind, I was just like, why? I'm just gonna put it in my stash and like hide it and not see it. But it's great yarn, and I think I could make something pretty with it. Another project that I've been thinking about is a striped t-shirt in these 2, but since the yarn is so thick, I'm not sure if I want to have like a summer t-shirt in it. So I think I'm gonna make either the like project bag by PetiteKnit or just a lot of trivets or like trivets. I'm not sure if that is even the right word, but you know, like to put your hot pots and stuff on. And so, and then I can give them as gifts, or I can sell them in my Etsy shop. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do with that. So I hope that you guys will join me for this challenge. There's just, as I said, it's not necessarily about like reducing your stash or eliminating your stash, But for me, it's more about being more happy with the stash that you have. Like, I have a lot of beautiful yarn, but the yarn isn't like necessarily the type of yarn that I go for anymore because I'm now designing patterns, or it's not necessarily the colors that I want to use right now, but it's still a great yarn. Like the orange color, that was originally for me, but then I didn't have enough, so then I knit my mom's sweater with that. Like this yarn was supposed to be a pillowcase, but it could be so much different, and like other beautiful things. And the yarn that I'm really loving right now and that I want to have in my stash is, for example, Arvetta. So there is no reason, even though we have the room, I have a room and a half for my yarn, there is no reason like that I need to downsize my stash. I just want to. I want the yarn to be loved. Like, for example, those scraps. Those scraps are kind of stressing me out, and I've been working, I feel like, knitting mittens with scraps since like August, but I just have a lot of like scraps of that yarn. So I still have some mittens to go before I'm like at the end of the goal there. But yeah, that's something I'm gonna work on in 2022. So thank you so much for watching. Comment below if you want to join me on this challenge. And then I'm thinking I'm gonna make a hashtag. I think the hashtag will be hashtag Stashbusters Challenge 2022 or hashtag Stashbusters 2022. So join me for that challenge, and I will be picking prizes from that hashtag like as the year goes on. Who know there will be some prizes of like yarn, and there will be some pattern prizes, maybe some stitch marker prizes, and other fun things going on through the year. So comment below if you want to join, and I will see you when I will be doing the update for how March went and then my April plans. I'll see you later.